All right, cool. So that looks like it's 7 o'clock. So yeah, welcome to anybody who's on there. But at the moment, there's no because anybody watching us live. So yeah, for those watching the recordings or on YouTube or iTunes, yeah, thanks for downloading it. This is the EMEA vBrownbag with myself, Greg Robertson. Tonight we are going to be going over the VCP6-CMA, Section 5, with Matthew, Bunce, and Marco and Baggum. If you are on the recording, or at least I should say the webinar, then yeah, use hashtag vBrownbag right in the questions area. Although at the moment there doesn't seem to be any attendees, so that's less pressure on Matthew and Marco. But yeah, if you are watching these recorded, let us know, hashtag vBrownbag, let us know if you enjoyed them. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it. We have done sections 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 4. So we missed 3, and then obviously section 5. And next week we're going to carry on, and then hopefully go back to section 3. So yeah, keep an eye out for those that are up already on professionalvmware.com. And yeah, apart from that, I'm going to stop talking and let Matthew and Marco introduce themselves and then get moving forward.
Okay. So my name is Marco van Baggum. I'm a senior consultant for ITQ. My Twitter handle is Baggum, and I will cover the objectives 5.1 and 5.3.
And my name is Matthew Bunce. I'm a senior consultant for Extrovert. My Twitter handle is VirtualizedGeek, and I'll be covering 5.2.
So, objective 5.1. The topics that we're going to cover is how to add and configure endpoints for vSphere and vRealize automation, how to map computer resource to endpoints, how to assign correct permissions to manage fabric groups, how you can collect compute resource with data, and how you can monitor resources.
And I'll be covering 5.2, create and manage reservations, where we'll do create and manage reservations, specify reservation information, select a reservation for a cloud-based virtual machine, create an endpoint to reserve physical machine resources, determine where reservations have been over-allocated, and then we'll do some troubleshooting reservation over-allocation.
And the last objective that we're going to cover is going over the topics create, configure, and assign one or more reservation to reservation policy, how you can create, configure, and assign reservation policy to one or more blueprints, and how you can create and assign a storage reservation policy. So let's start with the first objective, create and manage a fabric group. So the IS administrator can create the endpoint. Remember that a vSphere proxy agent must be installed before you can create an endpoint. Also, the endpoint name given to the vSphere proxy agent must match the name given to the vSphere proxy agent during the installation. It's possible to create the appropriate credentials separately before you start creating the endpoint, or you can do it when you're going through the wizard. So which step do you need to follow to create a vSphere endpoint? You have to log in as the IS administrator onto the VRA portal. Then select infrastructure, endpoints, and endpoints. Then select new endpoint, virtual, and a vSphere. There on the wizard you can enter a name, which is mandatory, and this will need to match the name provided during the proxy agent installation. Remember that it's case sensitive. Then enter the description, and then enter the vSphere SDK URL. It's just to fully qualify the main name of the vCenter, following by the /SDK. Then select the credential already provided, or create them through the wizard. Remember that they are mandatory. If required, select Specify Manager for the network and security checkbox if you're going to use NSX or VCNS. If necessary, add any custom properties and then click OK to save the vSphere endpoint. So typically you would map a compute resource to an endpoint by installing the appropriate agent, then configuring that endpoint with appropriate credentials in vArray. Once the initial data collection task completes, you should be able to see the computer resource and assign it to a fabric group, and then the fabric administrator can create the rest. How you can create a fabric group. So IS administrators are able to create fabric groups and assign computer resources to it. They also can assign fabric group administrators. The fabric group administrator is also responsible for creating reservations on the computer resources in the group, or to allocate resources to business groups. To assign users to a fabric group, log in as an IS administrator, select infrastructure, groups, and the fabric group. Then select a fabric group, enter the users groups in fabric administrator's text box, and select OK to save it. The next topic is the collect computer resource data. You can collect the computer resource data by running the data collection. You can do that on the compute resource. So on the right you can see the example of data collection on the vSphere cluster. Data collection occurs automatically at a regular interval, so there are different default intervals, or you can select a manual initiate data collection from an infrastructure source endpoint, and a fabric administrator can manually initiate data collection for the computer resources. For example, when you need this is you add a template to the vSphere environment and you want to reschedule the inventory so you can use it and add it to the blueprint. So different data collection types include infrastructure source endpoint data collection. What it does is updates information about the hosts, the templates, the ISO images for virtualization environments. It updates the installed memory and CPU count for the physical machines. An inventory data collection. That one updates the records for the VM tied to a computer resource and also records missing machines and marks them as missing. Performance data collection. It's only possible on the vSphere computer resource, and it collects the average CPU, storage, memory, and network use for each VM discovered to the inventory data collection. The VCNS inventory data collection. That one is also only available for the vSphere compute resource. It updates information related to the VCNX and SNSX components, security groups, the edges, and the load balancing servers. The WMI data collection. That one is only available for Windows compute resources only. It collects the management data for each Windows machine. The WMI agent must be installed on the managed servicing host. The cost data collection. This one is only available when you install and configure vRealize Business Standard. It collects the CPU, memory, storage costs for each compute resource managed by vRealize Business Standard. Remember that vRealize Business Standard must be configured for this. Next topic is monitoring resources. The fabric administrators manage the resource usage of a computer resource and reservation they own. Tenant administrators and business group managers manage the resources used of the business group they own. So different resource quota terminologies are physical. That one indicates the actual memory of the storage capacity of a computer resource. The reserved label, it shows the indication of the machine quota, the memory, the storage set aside for the reservation. For physical machines, this term indicates machines that are reserved for reservation but not yet provisioned. Allocated, it indicates the machine quota, memory or storage resource actively being consumed by the provisioned machines. The use label is for the virtual provisioning. This one indicates the amount of storage that is in use by provisioned machines. When standard storage is used, it shows the storage used, and the allocated label are the same. When space efficient technology is used, storage used is less than the storage allocated. This is because the machines consume only the amount of space they require. The free space label is for virtual provisioning. This one shows the unused physical capacity on the stores path. Now Matthew can take over the next objective.
Okay, so 5.2, create and manage reservations. Okay, Fabric administrators allocate resources to business groups members by creating reservations. To create a reservation for virtual platforms, log into the VRA console and select the option Infrastructure, and Reservations again. Clicking New Reservation, choose the Virtual option, which will present a number of different compute resources, Hyper-V, Hyper-V SE, VMM, KVM, vSphere, and Zen Server. Once you've done that, you can fill in the appropriate information, choose the compute resource. The name will be automatically generated, but you can overwrite that with anything you want to do. Choose the tenant and business group, a reservation policy if it's relevant, quota, and then set the priority. Make sure the reservation is enabled, and if required, enter any custom properties. You also have the option to create reservations for cloud platforms. This is done in a similar way, choosing infrastructure and reservations again, and choose cloud as the option under new reservation, which will present the option for Amazon EC2, OpenStack, and vCloud, which also covers vCloud Air. However, the corresponding endpoints need to be created first before the reservations can be created. Once created, the reservations can be managed from within the VRA console, selecting infrastructure and reservations, and then reservation again. Select the reservation you want to manage. You can also view the machines that are associated with that reservation by hovering over the reservation within the list, and when the pop-up comes up, choose View Machines. You can also create a new reservation by copying an existing reservation to import all the settings. You do this by, within the new reservation, choose one of the existing reservations from the Copy from Existing Reservations drop-down list. This will then populate a new reservation with all the existing settings, and then you can amend the settings as required for the new reservation. These options are waiting for Marco to click. Select a compute resource, enter the reservation name. Again, this is auto-generated but can be changed, and then a tenant and a business group. If required, you can then select a reservation policy and a machine quota. Only powered on machines count towards the quota. And if you want an unlimited quota, just leave it blank. Ensure that there is a priority entered, the reservation is enabled, and then again any custom properties have been entered. And click OK. You can now configure the memory, storage, and networking resources within the Resources tab. Specify the memory and any storage. You can use the over-provision the underlying storage using this reservation, and there's also the opportunity for FlexClone endpoints to be used, but that requires a NetApp ONTAP endpoint to exist prior. Yes, the amount of storage allocated in this reservation reserved text box. For networking, select a network path for the machines provisioned on this reservation, and also a network profile if required. The network profiles need to be configured in advance for order to do this, and where more than one network path is selected on a reservation, only one of them will be used when provisioning the blueprint. And to provide some kind of resource monitoring, you can specify alerts that are based upon percentage of the various different resources, storage, memory, CPU, and machine quota, and then you can choose the recipients of those alerts, and they're all sent via email. To set a reservation for a cloud-based machine, it's very similar, but there are a few criteria that need to be satisfied. They must be the same platform type, the reservation must be enabled, there must be enough capacity remaining in its quota, and security group specified. It must also be associated with the correct region that has the machine image specified in the blueprint, otherwise it won't work. And for AWS, you need to make sure the network types are matched, so VPC or non-VPC. So if the provider supports network selection and the blueprint has specific network settings, the reservation must have those same networks specified within it. Same thing for a reservation policy, it must have the reservation policy set correctly. The reservation must belong to that reservation policy. If there's no reservation system that meets all the selection criteria, the request will fail and nothing will be deployed. If multiple reservations meet the criteria, then the following logic applies, and this is where the priority comes into play, where higher priorities are selected over lower priorities for the reservations. And if multiple reservations have the same priority, the reservation with the lowest percentage of its quota allocated is selected. So it will attempt to balance the load across the reservations. If multiple reservations have the same priority and quota allocation, then it will be distributed among them in a round-robin fashion. For physical machine resources, we have the process where before members of a business group can request machines, a fabric administrator must allocate resources to them by creating the reservation. Each business group must have at least one physical reservation for its members to provision physical machines. Each physical machine can belong to only one reservation, but each reservation can contain multiple physical machines. I'll go through the process to create the physical machine reservation. Again, log in as a fabric administrator. A tenant administrator must have created at least one business group prior to this. Choose infrastructure, reservations, and reservations again. Choose new reservation, and this time choose physical. Enter a name in the name text box, select a tenant, select a business group. Now, only users in this business group can provision machines using this reservation. And then, if needed, select a reservation policy from the reservation policy drop-down menu. Type in a number in the machine quota text box to select the maximum number of machines that can be provisioned on this reservation. Again, only machines that are powered on are counted towards this quota, and you can have an unlimited quota if you leave it blank. Specify the priority, make sure the reservation is enabled, and enter any custom properties. Before clicking OK, choose the Resources tab and choose Click Add Machine, then select the physical machines you want to add to the reservation that will match the corresponding endpoint you've created. Each physical machine can only belong to one reservation. Once you've done that, you can click OK and the reservation can be created. The process for matching multiple unprovisioned machines to available resources is slightly different in that the first machine is evaluated against the resource specifications in the blueprint, so including the resource matching settings. For example, if it has at least 2 CPUs and exactly 2 gig of RAM, or 4 CPUs and 4 gig of RAM. If there is no physical machine that matches this specification, it won't be selected and we'll move on to the next one, but if there is a available physical machine that matches that requirement, it will be provisioned.
So, next objective, create and manage reservation policies. So, How can we create, configure, and assign more reservations to a reservation policy? A Fabric administrator can create the reservation policies. The reservation policy provides a way of controlling how reservation requests are processed. So one of the use cases for a reservation policy is ensure that virtual machines that are provisioned on storage that support NetApp FlexClone, or restrict provisioning of the Edge appliance only on the Edge cluster. So when you provision a multi-machine, you can select that the Edge gateway that is being deployed by vArray is being deployed on an Edge cluster. Restrict provisioning of cloud machines to a specific region. Speaks for itself, I think. We can add multiple reservations to a reservation policy, but the reservation can only belong to one reservation policy. And the reservation policy can include reservations of different types, but only reservations that match the blueprint are considered when selecting a reservation for a request. How to create a reservation policy? It's quite easy. Just go to Infrastructure, Reservations, and then Reservation Policies. Click on New Reservation, enter a name, and click on the Save icon. To assign a reservation policy to a reservation, click on Infrastructure, Reservations, Reservations, point to a reservation and click Edit. Then select it from the drop-down menu and select OK to save it. It's possible to assign a single reservation policy to more than one blueprint. A blueprint can only have one reservation policy, but you can assign multiple reservation policies to different kinds of endpoints or data stores or blueprints. Tenant administrators and business group managers can assign reservation policies to blueprints. You can do that by selecting Infrastructure, Blueprints, and then Blueprint. Select the blueprint you want to edit. Click on Reservation Policy from the Reservation Policy drop-down menu and select OK to save it. For the storage reservation policy, it's almost the same path. So Fabric administrators can create storage reservation policy to allow tenant administrators and business group managers to assign the volumes of virtual machines to different types of data stores. To create a storage reservation policy, you can log in as a Fabric administrator, then select Infrastructure, Reservation, and Reservation Policies. Click on New Reservation Policy, enter the name, description, and click on Save on the Save icon. After the reservation policy is created, you must populate it to the data stores, like shown below. So that was the end of the objectives. So we used these resources for filling out all the information of this vBrownbag. I don't know if Matthew wants to say anything else before we continue.
We're going to go and do some live demos, hopefully now.
So a live demo, it gives a better idea of everything that we talked about early on and show you how it's all been glued together. So let me see if it works. So first of all, I will show you the VMware endpoint. If you click on endpoint, wait for everything to wake up. You can see that there is already an endpoint being created. It's VMware vCenter, it's my vCenter. So you can also see that I've created the name vCenter with a capital C because during the installation of vArray and the proxy agent I used this name. So I have to fill in that exact name. You can see also that I put in the address, the URL of my vCenter, the SDK at the end, and I created credentials. You can select the credentials by clicking on the box. You can create new credentials if you would like. Just fill in the name, description, the actual username, and an encrypted password. So it's not visible when you edit it. It's also possible to add custom properties. Then select OK and it will be saved. So the credentials You can view the credentials that you created during the wizard when you create the endpoint, or it's possible to create new credentials. For example, test. Click on Save button. And if you do anything, for example, create a new endpoint, vSphere, you click on Credentials, you can view the credentials that you just added through here. So it's easy to pre-populate all your credentials before you add the endpoint. So after you have added the endpoint, you go back to Groups, Fabric Groups, you can see there that I already created a fabric group. And you can fill in the administrator. For example, if you want to add the domain admins, click on the magnifier. It will look it up in the Active Directory database. You can select it and it's been added. Because I've already added the cluster to this fabric, you can not deselect it because there's already some blueprints being deployed on the cluster. So normally if you add an endpoint and it's not linked to anything, you can see it here and select it and click OK to save it. And that cluster is then linked to the fabric group. After you've done that and you have access to the computer resource, the cluster will show up and then it's possible to do a data collection. On the data collection you have three kinds of default data collection types, so inventory, state and performance. You can see that it's automatically getting the information. Leave blank for daily data collection, leave blank for after 50 minutes, and daily collection. So if you would like, you can edit something here like every 12 hours or every 6 hours, or you can request it manually. If you request manually, it says the status will change and say in queue. You can click on refresh to view which status it is, but it will take some time to get all the information back from your vCenter. So we talked earlier about the different quota labels. So this one is quota allocated, the memory reserved and storage reserved. You can see here that there's 108% memory reserved on the cluster. So if you create a reservation policy, you can create a soft limit for the memory. So there's no hard limit, so it's easy to over-provision. So it's really important to monitor your cluster resources if it's not going to over the limit of the cluster itself, because you can't do that through VRA. So if we go to reservations, I already created a couple of reservations. So you can see that I created two reservations. They point to the same cluster, but they're named differently. So what I did per reservation, I linked a different reservation policy to it. Why? I'll show you later on. So for the first reservation, I've allocated 68 gig of RAM, and for the other one, reservation number 2, I only did 1. So, why? I'll show you later on. So these are the reservation policies we created and the storage policy that we created. So these two, the storage reservation policies, you can link them if you go to the computer resource, click on the cluster, go to configuration. You can see that I have two different types of data stores. So the first one, I created a storage reservation policy, gold, and the other one silver. So I can use that later on the blueprints and link different kind of VMs to different kinds of storage types. So if I go back to the blueprint, I've created two blueprints, a photo machine. So one is linked to reservation number 1, reservation policy number 1, and the other one is linked to reservation policy number 2. So I publish this one to the catalog. So for me it's now possible to request a virtual machine. So if I request this one will go to the reservation policy number 1. So this one has 1 gig of RAM, that's okay, click on submit. And the request has been successfully submitted. If I click on the other one, you can see that I changed this one. This one has 2 gig of RAM, and when I submit this one will go to the second reservation. On the second reservation, I created a limit of 1 gig of RAM, so it shouldn't be able to deploy. So if you go to the requests, you can already see that the reservation 2 is filled. So if I click on the request, and you can view here, states detail. The server error was encountered. Allocate reservation operation failed for business group. No reservation is available. So that's exactly what we wanted to show. And the other one is now in progress and should be able to deploy successfully. So if we go back to the reservation, we can see that there are 3 machines deployed on the first cluster, reservation. You can view that there is only 1 machine not running and the other 2 are running. So machines allocated 2 out of 3. And you can see here that this one has a limit of 1 gig. So we would like to change that and test if it then will deploy. So we go back to resources, select this one and increase this reservation to 4 gig of RAM. Click OK. It shows now that we have 4 gig of RAM. Go back to the catalog, click on request reservation 2 and submit. Okay. So we go back to request. It's still failing. And it's still saying reservation is not available, but it should be able to deploy.
The joys of a live demo.
Exactly. So now we covered all the stuff we mentioned on earlier during the objectives. Anything else you want to add, Matthew?
No, I was hoping that we would maybe get a few questions, but as I think most people are going to be watching this offline or downloaded, what you can do is either email me or Marco or get us on Twitter and we'll do our best to answer any questions for you, or pass it through to the vBrownbag hashtag and we'll respond there.
Agreed. So we would like to thank you for watching this vBrownbag.
And we'll
that's where they can get you guys on Twitter. So Matthew is at Virtualized Geek and Marco is at Baggum. Yeah, thanks guys. That was pretty cool, and it's always appreciated when you do a live demo. The live demo, yeah, it never goes perfectly well for anybody that does live demos, although it's very seldom. So good work for going through that, and yeah, it looks like it went nicely. And yeah, thanks for presenting, guys. It's really, really cool. And as the guys say, if you have any questions for them, you can find them on Twitter or even at their different blogs. I don't know if you guys mentioned where you guys blog from.
So I have virtualizedgeek.com.
I have VMware, and I have vmbaggum.nl.
Cool. And yeah, I think that's it for anybody who's watching, which is now similarly nobody. So everybody who's watching this has been downloaded it. So I don't really have to tell you to find it on YouTube or iTunes. But yeah, keep a lookout for the previous ones, and also next week we'll hopefully have one of the co-hosts of the VBrownbag, Michael Poor, who's going to be going over Objective 6. And yeah, also if you're watching this very soon, keep an eye out for the US one. We're doing commitment. So what we're doing is we're obviously going into all around Git, and each day somebody's going to be presenting around that. So keep an eye out for that. There is one happening tonight, and pretty much every day. So join in for that. We'll be posting up all the videos of those, and it should be interesting. I think we're full now, which is brilliant. And yeah, if you guys ever want to present, we have an EMEA one, which is obviously the one you're watching. We have a US one, we have a Latin America one, and even the APAC when they're starting up again. So if you want to present like these guys did, then get in contact with pretty much any of us under the hashtag vBrownbag, or even on professionalvmware.com. And yeah, that's about it. Hopefully I'll get this recording up quite soon. So thanks guys, and yeah, matey, I'm glad that it all worked from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
All right, cheers guys.
Cheers.